fit into this, and basically encouraged all her students to come along. Not that they needed many encouragement, and it's all very good to see your students from CPIT and DNA here as well as other independents. We're going to have Louise talking first, and then Coralie will be presenting. Please welcome Louise Palmer.
I'm not really used to microphones. Is that okay with everyone? Cool. This is quite an informal talk. On being asked to present a talk on opportunities after art school, it really got me thinking about the opportunities that I followed through with when I finished art school. So this is an informal reflection on my experience. Leaving art schools presents numerous challenges and questions for emerging artists. And in thinking about what I did after art school, the dominant theme was the importance of connections made both during art school and immediately after study, and how these can be the building blocks for developing networks when out in the real world. Some of you are practicing artists and may recognise parts of my journey, and most of you are still students and yet to find your way, but I hope that you will find something of interest in this, that it suggests possibilities for action and initiatives at an immediate, grassroots and artist-driven level. On thinking about my experience, I keep returning to the challenges faced by young artists. It's really difficult when you leave art school. There's no answer to what do you do when you finish art school. It's not something that you can be told or directed towards. Art school isn't vocational, and the reality is that very few art school students will go on to be practicing artists. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I finished art school, and some of the things I just fell into. The trajectory from the School of Fine Arts in the mid-90s through to the High Street Project in Christchurch, to London, to postgrad study in Sydney, and to where I stand now as a lecturer at the School of Fine Arts may seem planned, but it wasn't at all. It was just what happened when I was open to opportunities. Life is unpredictable, and I think that that's the key, an openness to changing circumstances, and I think that that's important now more than ever in response to the new environment that we find ourselves in Christchurch. So the talk will trace my journey after art school and may offer some ideas and possibilities for those who are contemplating their life post-art school and those who are out in the real world. And some of you here will have similar experiences and be able to relate to my experiences. It's really important for those of you who are still students to make the most of what you've got at art school, and part of that is the community that you're part of. And for me, this community was crucially important in forging networks and connections that are still strong and still present opportunities for me as an artist. You've got to make the opportunities for yourself. I finished study in 1996, and I was involved in the High Street Project, an artist-run initiative, in its formative years. My initial involvement was through an exhibition in my final year of study, and I was also a participant in group exhibitions at the project and in a solo exhibition in the series Identikit. And that came about simply by being out there, being engaged, getting to know people, going to openings and having conversations with people, and that's something that I'm sure that you guys are familiar with. My first show at the High Street Project was quite an ambitious work. I don't have an image of it here, unfortunately, but nobody told me what to do. And it was the same for all of the artists who were showing at the space at the moment, at that time. The exhibitions were possible because of the support from the other artists involved. It was from a very small and a very tight-knit community, and that community was really, really important to the development of the project and to the development of my own practice. We were making our own way, and our own initiative became really important. And there were some really fantastic exhibitions around that time, and this is when the High Street Project was down this end of High Street in what's now the old jazz school. But we were doing it our own way. There's no rule book, there's no rules. You've got to make your own way. Through this involvement, it was suggested that I take on the role of the gallery coordinator. This was in 1997. And at that stage, High Street had some funding from Creative New Zealand, and the coordinator role was funded through what was then known as Task Force Green, which was really just the equivalent of the dole. If you're going to be working in the arts sector, you've got to be prepared to work for very little, next to no money at all. At that stage, High Street had biannual funding for a series of exhibitions, And that was also something that was thrown in the deep end and had no experience writing funding applications. You can be given the tools and the support, and you're going to be at a session tomorrow with Kate Montgomery from Creative New Zealand, but the only way that you can really learn these things is by doing it. So I was involved in a number of successful projects at the High Street project, but during my time there, the most significant project that I was part of was the series From Here, and that took place in 1998. These are catalogues of exhibition series from the High Street project that I was part of editing and oversaw the exhibitions. And again, that was something that I didn't have any experience of. It was the first time that I'd had to publish a catalogue or edit a catalogue. I didn't know what editing a catalogue entailed, and I had invaluable advice and support from other artists and from other arts administrators at projects like the Physics Room. But for some things like working with a designer, working with image files, press passing, distribution, that kind of thing, it was all learning on the job. It was all learning through doing, and I think that that's the most important thing from my time there. So this is some photographs from the series Lots. I had a lot of fun trawling through the High Street project archives at the Macmillan Brown Library. And I sort of want to emphasise the importance of the social connections and the social connections that often come from the friendships that you make when you're at art school. This is an artist, Vanessa Jack, who's now based in Cologne, who I've recently spent time with on a residency. The former image, Dan Arps, who was an artist who regularly showed at the High Street Project, and other faces that you might be familiar with. The series From Here was all about connections based on personal connections and expanding networks. I invited 4 artists who had once been based in Christchurch and who had some connection to the High Street project as past exhibitors, who were now based overseas, to curate an exhibition. And this resulted in a really diverse range of exhibitions with a wide range of artists involved in international art communities. Conversations took place via email, which for me back then was something completely new. Artists and curators travelled to Christchurch, installed the exhibitions, gave talks at art school. And looking back, I'm really not sure how it all happened. The budget was extremely tight, and like most project spaces, it relied on volunteers and long nights installing work and putting in hard graft. And we were all doing it because we really wanted to be doing it. We did have some funds from CNZ, but as I said, it was a really limited budget. So that was the challenge we faced for this project. And if you guys are interested in setting up projects for yourself, there's a whole another set of challenges that you're going to have to face in this environment in Christchurch. So with limited funding, transport and freight became a major consideration, and posed a challenge to the artists and the curators. So this was one of the exhibitions which was curated by a New Zealand artist now based in Cologne, then in Dusseldorf, Joanne Moore, and that personal connection has been a really important one that I've maintained and sustained over the years. She's now in Cologne, where I've recently had an artist residency. She meticulously organised an archive of work from over 100 artists based in Dusseldorf, which was accessible through publication, slides and videos. So all she brought over with her on the plane was a small box of slides and catalogues. Another project, Project George, which was initiated by an ex-Canterbury artist, Jason Mailing, was an ongoing investigation network which was built up over the exhibition period from instructions and faxes that his colleagues and friends in London sent him over. So it happened quite spontaneously. He'd left Christchurch and was based in London and studying at the Slade. There were 2 other projects by Canterbury artists, which I curated. This is a work by Sarah Mitchell, which was part of the exhibition From Here too. And this is a work by a Scottish artist, Stephen Harrell. The artist Lee Martin, who was an ex-Cantabrian, introduced us to Stephen Harrell, who initiated a fantastic series of 2 exhibitions, wallpaper, video, and again, faced with that challenge of freight and transport, he did a series of works with other artists in which the works were wall paintings, photographs and things that were easily brought over in his hand luggage. So the whole exhibition arrived in his hand luggage. This is a work by Marcus Moore, and in the accompanying catalogue, Marcus Moore talks about the series in terms of its title, From Here, as suggesting a departure, and a departure that might indicate a return. And for some of the artists, it was a return to where they once belonged. There was a lot of activity at this grassroots level among artists in Christchurch at this time, so 96, 97, 98. The year prior to From Here saw an exhibition series, Casco, by the artist David Hatcher. And this is archived on the Physics Room website. It's actually a really interesting archive of artist projects that have taken place over the last 10, 15 years. So some of these names might sound familiar. There were 8 exhibitions that were set in an industrial chiller that David used as a studio, and he lived next door. So it was a really unique environment for artists to show work in, this sort of stainless steel chiller space. And the 8 artists set up individual installations and works over quite a short time period. And David made a point of setting the Casco series apart from funding institutions. He quite consciously wanted to operate outside of those systems and structures, and I think that the artists working in a non-gallery space resulted in some really innovative and really experimental works. In the catalogue essay, the writer Marissa Clare states that Casco was a gift of time and energy from the artists to themselves, to each other and to Christchurch. And I think that that's true of all good artist initiatives. So I think this is sort of building a picture of a community and a network, and it seemed to be that the time was ripe. It was the right time and the right place for these kind of initiatives to happen in Christchurch. And maybe this is the right time and place for further initiatives to happen. It's been really interesting looking back at these projects. But I found that time and place particularly exciting and invigorating, and learnt a lot from that time. But learning by doing and learning from being engaged. And with the luxury of hindsight, I can also sort of consider and realise the importance of the art school friendships and connections that have sort of become professional relationships, and the importance too of the local context and the current environment that I was working in. Through an art school scholarship, I then travelled to London, as many recent graduates do, but really didn't know what I was looking for. Chance and good timing led me to meeting 2 Australian curators who were similarly looking for something to do and for somewhere to live. And this was the birth of Stuff Gallery. We found a disused, dilapidated old warehouse in the East End, and this was before Bethnal Green had become gentrified, as it now is. I was there at the end of last year, and it was on the corner of Bethnal Green and, fortuitously, Palmer's Road. That is now where our gallery used to be, our beloved Stuff Gallery. We had a crazy 6-month schedule of weekly exhibitions. And again, both myself and the Australian curators drew on connections that we'd made and connections and networks that we had from art school and from our hometowns. So the programming was a mixture of artists from New Zealand, artists from Australia, and we also made connections and contacts with artists from London. I think one of the successes of Stuff was that we were really naive about the London art scene, and I think that enabled us to just set up and do what we wanted to do without worrying too much about the repercussions. We put out a call for proposals in a local art magazine, and we were inundated with artists who were interested in showing, and sort of set up a really I think, a really strong exhibition program of exhibitions. So some of these names you might recognise. Vanessa Jack again, colleague from art school. Julian Dashba had an exhibition which was great. He had so many connections with networks in Amsterdam and other parts of Europe that he then enabled us to sort of further our networks and connections and meet artists operating in other parts of Europe. So the connections and the networks spread as the gallery developed. The social was really important, both with this space and with the High Street project. We had weekly exhibitions, and at each exhibition there was a cocktail of the night. So it was a really frantic, high-paced environment that we were working in. We built our own audience by emailing, by putting posters out, trying to get press releases in Time Out, constantly trying to get in Time Out and not always succeeding. But we didn't, not being part of the London art scene, we didn't have any rules to follow, so we made our own. And I sort of feel that there's a sense that that might be possible in Christchurch now. Through the connections I made through stuff, it gave me the confidence and experience to apply and be offered a job at Gasworks Gallery in London, which I consider to be quite similar to the physics room in its programming. And again, sort of furthering the networks and connections with other artists. After that, I travelled to Sydney to undertake postgraduate study at Sydney College of the Arts and decided to focus again on art making. As part of my time there, I applied for a residency at Gallery Winn, which was an artist-run space in Chippendale, and also Art Space Studios. And this was before Art Space took over the operation of the studios, and it was run by the New South Wales Arts Government. By then, I'd had a lot of experience writing proposals, and writing proposals for CNZ through the High Street project, and writing proposals for myself and for my own projects. The residency at Art Space and a more recent residency at Opecta in Cologne were really, really important opportunities for me, and I think that a residency provides a really important opportunity for an artist at any level to focus on their own work, and often without the expectation of a specific outcome. So it allows time to experiment and to experience new contexts, and also an opportunity for professional networking. From my time in Sydney, I had maintained connections with artists who I'd worked with at the High Street project, such as Joanne Moore and Vanessa Jack, who are now based in Cologne. And it was through this connection that I was invited to submit a proposal to Opecta Atelier in Cologne, and I spent 3 months there at the end of last year. Opecta, again, is an artist-run initiative. There's about 15, 20 artists with studios there, and there's one artist in residency studio, the Guest Atelier. It was a fantastic space, and it was a really, really good opportunity for me to refocus on my own practice after having worked in the university for 5 years. And I think what I'm sort of leading to is the importance of the connections that you make at art school and the significance of those in relation to the opportunities that you can take up and build on in the professional development of your career as an artist. It was through this one set of connections back to my time at art school in High Street that I was able to take up this opportunity. So my advice to young artists, and those of you who are at art school or recently finishing art school, is to apply for as much as you can and to maintain and sustain the contexts from your time at art school and from the environment that you're working in, to make your own opportunities and to make things happen, and to be open to opportunities, because sometimes you do fall into things aren't planned. And the environment post-art school is unpredictable. You don't always know what's going to happen. I think the most interesting projects often happen with minimal funding and are driven by emerging artists. So this is something that, we're at a conference here that's going to focus on public art, but my focus has been on the personal. And I think that there's definitely bigger issues to consider in Christchurch and an ongoing conversation about public art. But I think it's important for you guys to feel that you can take the initiative and you can do something yourself. You've got to start somewhere, and setting up your own project and being engaged in the community that you're a part of is one way to reinvigorate the arts in Christchurch. I think small initiatives can have a much larger impact, and one example of that is the casting room, which has recently been set up at the School of Fine Arts at the university, and that's an opportunity for students to show. There's other projects that have happened recently in Christchurch that have benefited from the lack of other exhibition spaces, such as ABC, and I know that there's other projects planned. Christchurch has been a centre for really engaging artist initiatives, and now is the time to continue that tradition. I think it's a unique environment, and it's a unique funding environment also. All the projects that I've discussed here that I've been involved in are artist-led and artist-driven. So I think it's up to you to take on the challenge and to do something, and I really hope to see the arts take the lead in any change in Christchurch. Thanks.
It's a very great pleasure to introduce Coralie Winn. She said she doesn't need an introduction, but she would like everyone to know about her Olympic gold medal in gymnastics. It's very important that we acknowledge that, yes, she is a superstar.
I was making a joke about that how you introduced me, and I said, don't forget my Olympic gold medal or something.
Anyway, Coralie is the founder, director and coordinator of Gap Filler, which most of you are probably familiar with. She's ably assisted by Trent Miles and Sam Austin, and I think Trent's here, or maybe not in this room. Oh, he's gone to the other session anyway. And I will leave Coralie to it.
How do you make it?
Oh, how do you make it?
Make it do this. Cool. Clicker, okay. I don't like PowerPoint. It doesn't do what I want it to. So I have to click and talk. Okay. Hello, everybody. I was looking up and seeing faces I recognise, some I don't. I thought I'd start by asking people, if they'd heard of Gap Filler before. However, when I was listening to Hugh's talk and heard Gap Filler referred to a number of times, I think that I know the answer to that question. And it was a bit naive of me, I think, to assume that people maybe hadn't. What I will ask is, I want to get you talking for a bit, actually. I'd like someone, or many people here, to tell me what Gap Filler is, in your understanding, actually. And it's not a test. I'm really interested in how other people understand what it is. So, yes, young man. Yeah, cool, yeah. Someone else, yep.
Proactively rebuild communities which have been decimated through buildings not being there and replacing with something that's actually functional rather than empty space.
Yep. More. Lacey. Yep. Yeah, it is facilitating. So the ideas come from Gap Filler, us, and from people we've never met before. Yep, exactly. Anything else? This is really interesting.
The idea of activating space, and creating energy, and creating
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's all yes, it's all that and more, and all of you, I'd say it in ways that I never describe it like that, and that's great. Gap filler is so much bigger than just me or people that created it. It's a Frankenstein. All those words that came up are really important. Community, life, energy, creative. I can't remember if the word experimental was used, but it is extremely, it is all of those things, and it is evolving all the time. What projects have people been to? Oh, put your hand up if you have been to a Gap Filler project. Cool, okay. What ones have you been to? Dance Mat, yep. Oh, the CPIT project, yep. Others? Outdoor theatre? Oh, which one? Oh, yep, cycle-powered cinema, yep. No, I thought, theatre? I don't know if I've done that. Another one? The fridge library, yeah. Which is amazingly still there. It was only meant to be there for 3 months. I can't take it away. I don't think. Pardon? Yeah. Others? Addington Fair, yeah. That's a slippery one. Yeah, that is. But I love that when people say, I don't know if it's a Gap Filler project, because that's the whole point, actually, that we're inspiring things. One of the things about the book exchange, I think maybe, Julia, you might have said this. You didn't say it to me, but I heard it third hand from someone else, that you were surprised that other people hadn't added to it, to the book exchange, by adding fridges. Was that you who said that? Yeah, okay. So I can't remember who told me. Yes, shopping. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. We actually thought that more people may pick up the idea and run with it elsewhere. Yeah. I think that did happen in Heathcote Valley. Someone got 3 domestic fridges and painted them bright colours. But it's about, for us, it's about leading by example, trying new things and seeing what does get picked up. And it is a very interesting territory I'm navigating now with the sense of ownership. That anyone who does something, that if you do something on a vacant site, it must be a Gap Filler project. And we are loath for that to be so. We don't want, and we never wanted to have a monopoly on vacant space projects. We rather wanted to actually change the way people think about vacant space. So that's the next big challenge for us. So more questions. I imagined what this audience would be like, and it's not quite what I thought. So that's cool. How many of you have worked on a project outdoors before? Yes, Neil. What were the challenges that you faced? Tim?
With hostile environments, bureaucracy.
Yeah. Other people who have worked on projects outdoors? What are the challenges? Pardon? People? Do you mean people that people that see them, or vandals, or all of that?
Unexpected interactions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, one of the most exciting but also difficult things about working in the public realm is anyone can happen upon it, right? It's very different. We're working in something that's called an art gallery or a project space, because your audience know that they're going to see an artwork by an artist, and that because the artist is in the art gallery, they must be good, because otherwise they wouldn't be there. So we should understand this is art. And I'm being a bit of an idiot, but you see where I'm going. When you do something in the public realm, people will encounter it who have no interest in art galleries or art, but they will see it and they will experience it, and they will understand it in their own way. may hate it, they may kick it, I don't know, but these are the things we have to think about. And in Christchurch now, I think that's extremely exciting. What help, for those of you who have worked outside in outdoor projects, what help did you need? Or what help didn't you have that would have been good to have had?
Just people who've done it before. And luckily I did have that, but it's a weird topography that you don't necessarily know. It's like walking around in a dark room trying to figure your way around.
Yeah. Anything, other things? What would have been helpful? Yep, not enough time to do what you want to do. Yep. So that actually managing the whole project and pulling it together. Yep. Other things? What about those of you who haven't worked on a project outdoors but aspire to? What are some of the things that you think will be a barrier or be difficult for you? How you get permission? Yeah, and Hugh's talk was... Pardon? Yep. Pardon? Paint your own fence. Yeah. Permission is a big one. We're very obedient, aren't we? We are. I mean, if you think about... pardon? Most people. We are very obedient here in New Zealand and in Christchurch, which is interesting. No. Gap Filler does, and Gap Filler made a decision early on that we would always, because if you want to get funding support and money from wherever, and sort of early on when it started to gather some momentum and it actually became, we had this crazy idea that maybe I could invent a job for myself after having lost my job. It became clear that we would have to be above board in order for people to trust us. But that doesn't stop me advocating other people to do things secretly. Right. I think I will move now into a bit more of a presentation, but I want you to carry those questions forward. And we're going to look at Gap Filler briefly and how that kind of got going. But then I'm going to bring it back to how I think maybe I can inspire some of you to actually get and do some stuff here and now in Christchurch. That's how we're going to roll. So, this is recently I've come to the realisation that this word is where it's at in Christchurch now. We have to actually play with the city. I truly believe that it is a blank canvas, and I don't just mean that in a visual arts sense, but it's a blank canvas for creative intervention that contributes to Christchurch's regeneration and post-quake identity. Which, if you can read my between the lines, we are creating the city now. All of us creative people have a huge role to play in redefining and rediscovering and remapping this city. There is no city. We're in a sort of pre-city phase. And I think Julia's question to Hugh before, how can artists and creative people be involved right at the coalface, is extremely important. And I don't know the answer, but I'm trying to work on it. It's driving a lot of what I'm thinking about, and getting playful with the city is really important. And I will, I think through this presentation, I will show you maybe what that could look like. We all know the situation, but I look at these spaces and I see possibilities. Almost all of those photos were taken pre-February. Because I lost my bike in the earthquake as well as my house. And I want to briefly talk about how Gap Filler came to start, because I think it's interesting. So you will remember after the September quake, the city was dying, but it was open. Businesses were struggling. The council had just started that "Come and help the city one cappuccino at a time" campaign. Do you remember? Maybe don't. But the central city, this council were really trying to get people to come back in. It was bad. We had a lot of spaces looking like this, and there was, from some people, a concern that the rebuild might be rushed. Now, remember, this is pre-February. I lost my job, and Gapfiller became a kind of synthesis of some ideas that had been kicking around for a while, that there was a lot of underutilised vacant space in the city. At that time, before the quakes, it was about vacant buildings, but it became gaps. And there wasn't much that we, normal people, could do to help the recovery. So we had this idea of, let's use one of these spaces. Let's demonstrate that temporary activity and creative people have a huge role to play here. And another funny thing, upon reflection, is that we were concerned about the rebuild being too hasty in light of the Rugby World Cup, because we actually thought that there might be pressure to rebuild very fast, so that all the tourists coming with their millions of dollars would not see a post-quake city. Which, okay, it's very naive now, but that's honestly one of the things that was going into the pot as to why this began. But I'm under no illusions that the reason why Gapfiller came to be is because of my time, as I had time. And I'm aware that many people don't, as you said, when you're trying to exist and make money to survive, to be able to find the time to do something. So the idea behind the very first project was create a public space on private land, make it green. We had potted plants that we borrowed. It was done very cheaply, and we had a coffee truck, and we would show films. That was a very basic idea. And it grew to become something bigger than that. We had other forms of performance, bands and puppetry and circus, but poets. But it was an experiment, and it was done by a small group of people. There were 3 in the beginning, and for the first project it became 6, because the 3 decided that we needed more people, and we took on board other people that wanted to be involved. A designer, an artist who some of you may know called Annie McKenzie, who has recently returned to Christchurch, and another project manager type person. And we sat around my kitchen table on a Monday night one week in October, and I said, let's do something. You're all here because you want to be involved. How much money would you all be willing to put in and not see back again? Someone put in $100 because that's all they had. Someone put in $500 because they were more affluent. But we came up with, I don't even remember how much money we came up with, but it wasn't much, it was our own. And the decision there was, we are not going to wait for funding to dictate what we do. Not everyone would maybe be able to do that, or depending on your financial situation, you have to rein it in of what you can achieve. But because I had time, I could ring up the shed people and ask to borrow the shed to store things, and I could find bits and bobs from everywhere. So that decision to take action, I think, is really important. That's what we did, and I guess that's what I'm trying to encourage you to do, is just do something. The next step in Gapfiller's life was to do another project totally different from the first one, so people didn't think we were just an events team. And this was it. And then we got to the point where it was like, how are we going to keep going? And we decided that we would become a charitable trust. And that's a hard process, but fortunately Ryan Reynolds, who's involved in Gapfiller, is incredibly brilliant and managed to put on a hat of a lawyer and write a trust deed. He's written them before, but it got accepted first go. And I think anyone who's been involved in charitable trusts know that that's quite a mean feat. Reflecting on why I think Gapfiller has been successful. We just do stuff. In a time when there's so much inaction, to see action is very important. It's accessible, it's inclusive. It involves the wider community in its projects. Community art and the established art scene have a very fraught relationship. I don't think it's a time to maintain that kind of attitude. I think we have to think differently about everything, because the situation is totally different. what we do is, as I said, inclusive, accessible, all ages. We're open to collaboration. The ideas, as I said, come from within us, but also from people we've never met before. It's playful. Oh, I meant to be clicking. Oh. It's totally engaged with the city and the state of the city now. I mean, can you... And it's so obviously engaged because of what it's doing and where it is. And I think also it's not where the projects we do, we're not afraid to fail, to try things and have them not work. Some of the things we do, maybe people don't use them as much as we thought, or they don't end up looking that great, or they get vandalised, or whatever. But that ability to try and to learn and to fail, I think, is very important, because what we are doing now, seeing what works and what doesn't work, it goes into influence the future of this city. Yes, developers are going to be building buildings, and it seems like it's going to be a developer-led rebuild, but they rebuild based on the situation. The rebuild is going to happen over decades. Someone rebuilding in 5 years is going to be making quite different decisions from someone rebuilding in the next year. We're part of changing the landscape here. That's... Yeah, Dance-A-Mat. Now, this is a very good example of something that was an experiment, a very big experiment for us. This is the biggest project we've ever done. My biggest, I mean, actually in terms of money. But it's been very successful. It taps into a community of people that already exists, the dance community. It provides a platform for people to approach it and use it as they will. And already we think the idea behind this, what we do with Gapfiller, is to try something out, see if it works, and then maybe it will be picked up in the future city. So maybe we may see in Cathedral Square a Dance-A-Mat or something like it, a space for dance. That's really cool. And we've tried it out on a small scale. For us, it's a big project, but for the city, it's a tiny bit of money. But by experimenting and discovering and failing in this way, we contribute to the environment here. We create an environment of innovation and experimentation, and we can save more costly failures in the long run, perhaps. Because what's urban design if not sort of guessing? Really calculated guessing, but with budgets of millions of dollars, right? Right. So back to where I began. You see, sort of where I'm heading with all of this. The transitional city, which is what we're in now, this is it for a long time. We have to, I think, as creative people, we have to adapt to that, and we have to work in new ways. We can't wait for things to be rebuilt for us. Things will be rebuilt when they're rebuilt, but we have to change and learn in doing that. And some people, it's not going to suit everyone to come and work in a vacant site necessarily. But there are other options right now. There will be vacant buildings. There are all sorts of issues with yellow stickers and all of that, yes, but vacant buildings, shop window projects. That's an image from Gridlocked, which some of you who will remember, which was a Christchurch project a long time ago, actually. Not so long, but long way before the quakes, that used shop windows. Hoarding, I learned that this is called hoarding. Wood on buildings. Walls that we shouldn't see, walls exposed, these kind of startled walls. They almost look like kind of, naked ladies and caught in the headlights. We shouldn't see these walls, but they're there. Paint, project, paste up. There are more things. Paint, green moss that grows, whatever. They are canvases. The city is a canvas right now. This is in Spain. It is it was a wonderful installation in an alley between buildings. Copenhagen, painting the streets. This is in Christchurch. Do people remember these? And are there people here that still have the flowers? You could take, these were changed, was put up, knitted by people here, and flowers added every day, and you could take a flower and wear it. And so they travelled around the city. Really simple, but playing with the city. And temporary architecture is something Gapfiller is really interested in, the city's really interested in. The transitional cathedral is a temporary building. This is a pavilion made of beer crates, pallets, wood, and Artbox, which is a local project, relocatable modular structures. This is really exciting, I think. And temporary architecture acts as a destination. People will come to see it. But then the ways that we can use the architecture, who can inhabit the pavilion? Is it used for live music or theatre or artist spaces? That's sort of where I'm also thinking, and I'm interested in moving. Gapfiller is interested in helping make more of this stuff happen. So, who's been to Sydenham recently? Would you agree with me that it is significantly different since, say, 6 months after the February quake? Yeah, it's amazing. And I think the temporary activity that Gapfiller has done, but another project, Greening the Rubble, and then a business in the coffee caravan, it snowballs, and it all goes to change the perception of an area. And this is what people call creative urban regeneration. And that's, I think, what we should see ourselves as part of that. I mean me identifying with you when I was a few years ago. Right. So I want to know what you're going to do, actually. Because you cannot wait for other people to do things for you. And as Louise said, I totally agree with Louise. You have to learn by doing, and you have to engage with the situation. And the situation, the city is totally stuffed. So we have to engage with that, really. Gather people with you. Commit to a date to do something. We, Gapfiller, have the capacity, as it says up there, to facilitate some projects. We hope to grow soon. At the moment, Gapfiller is 1.5 people, well, not half a person, but, half part-time. That's tiny. And we are totally overwhelmed, but hoping to grow soon if we can find some more money, which we hope to. But that would be very exciting to help share the knowledge. We already open source our documents on our website to try and help people to help you overcome those barriers of that you mentioned, of how do you start, what do you do. So in a very real terms, if you want to do something, find a space, a wall, a window that interests you. Propose a project to us. If we can, we'll help you. If not, we'll kind of get you going maybe. You have to make a decision whether you're going to do it guerrilla style or not. As I said, Gapfiller, we don't do that. We can't, we won't. But you need to make your own decisions about what the impact of something you may do. Painting some flowers on the footpath or planting pothole gardens. I think that's fine. Go and do whatever you want. But if there is a decision to be made there on whether you are going to ask permission or not. And I have been surprised by the lack of guerrilla stuff happening, I must say. Come on, people. It's great. I can tell you to do it. And then there's another project which some of you may have heard of before, which I will just finish with because I've been unsure whether it's going to come on board, but it's called Life in Vacant Spaces. And it's come about because Gapfiller has said to the council a long time ago, look, the situation is huge and there are many, many, many people out there with ideas that want to work in new ways in the city. And if you send them all to Gapfiller, which I think I heard someone say, Julia, you said someone you were talking to got told to come to see us, you're only going to get this many projects. Even if we grow a bit, you're only still going to get this many. But if you can create a broker whose sole role is to connect ideas with vacant spaces and set them going and take on the insurance in an ideal world, we hope that it will be like that, you can get this many projects and the city will benefit. And I think that what it is about here now is creating an environment for creativity and for artists to really flourish. It's about creating opportunities for all of you and for people from around New Zealand that are interested in coming here, and people who are coming here already from Australia wanting to do projects, and they want to come, they want to do stuff. So that's coming on board later in a few months' time, I imagine. So just keep that in the back of your mind. There will be hopefully a way to make it easier, so you don't stumble at the enormous barriers. And what's really marvellous about it is there might even be money, small grants available for you to tap into to help you do stuff, because I'm very aware that it does take money to do some things, but you also can be extremely resourceful using recycled material and going to talk to businesses about helping you. Yeah. I think that's all. It's a very, I think I tried to include too much, but I hope that I have captured a kind of feeling of opportunity, possibility, and that I would like to leave you with the thought of do something. It doesn't have to be in 2 months, it could be in a year's time, but actually you can try and experiment outside of the realms of galleries or whatnot, because it will contribute to a flourishing, interesting, dynamic city. And you will learn so much from doing it. And it adds to your repertoire when you can say, look, I've done this project and I did this and I did that. It's so important. So, okay, who here has an idea? Yes. Cool. There you go. Now I should probably finish, but one more idea? Who else has got an idea? It could be so tiny. Oh yeah, right, like you don't have ideas. Come on. Most creative street competition. Oh, cool. Yep. Suburban. Cool. Working in like footpaths and curbs and fences and yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is anyone can do stuff. And I think that it's really important that everyone feels that they can do stuff. I had a meeting with a structural engineer the other day. She's never done a creative project before, but she feels like she can. I think that's marvellous, right? That's so good for if we can help more people to do things, and then creates this environment in which bigger, more robust art projects that do need more support can feel more supported rather than just outposts around the city. So, okay, thanks.
I'm kind of aware that we're running a bit out.